not know if I can put this video out. This is embarrassing. It's not cute, I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit emotional. I don't know what it was, but it was something.
Oh, Victoria, you're dramatic. Oh, Victoria, it's not that deep, man. Oh, Victoria, relax, it's not even that serious.
It was serious. I swear she looked in my eyes, like she looked at me. You got ADHD. All right. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be speaking about something really sensitive, really personal, and if I made any bad jokes, it's because I'm really trying to like hold it together. I beat my face because if I have makeup on, I'm not gonna want to cry and ruin it. And today I am going to speak about how I found out that I had ADHD at 22. Now, this is going to be something that my journey and stuff that I'm going to touch on more and more. So if you're interested to see my journey, or if you're interested to see how I'm coping, just make sure that you subscribe, turn on post notifications, all that good stuff. I'm gonna look at my notes on my phone, so if I'm just staring at my phone randomly, that's the reason why. And without further ado, I guess time to start. So for those of you who don't know, I was born in the United States, and I was particularly born in, well, I was born in a surrounding area of Boston, but I lived and predominantly grew up in the suburbs. And my experience of that childhood was really a bit sketchy. And from early on, as like 3-4 years old, was considered as very disruptive. And especially when my mom tells me stories about it, she's like, yeah, they had to move your class, you were always running about, you were always kind of disrupting or like ringleading the other children. And around that age, I had a lot of energy, I guess you could say. I was quite rambunctious, or whatever the words that you use, the politically correct words that you use. Lived in a predominantly white area as well, so I feel like that kind of just made things, I don't want to say worse, but that kind of made things a bit more noticeable that I wasn't acting or behaving in the way that was, I guess, typical of a girl my age. As I went through my education, I kind of always knew I was different. And I remember, again, really young, my mom was like, if you want to introduce yourself, go up to them and be like, hi, my name is Victoria, nice to meet you, what's your name? And she kind of just like almost coached me through that. And I think that's kind of what began my experience of masking, because I always found it really difficult to meet people, and up until now I find it really difficult to make eye contact with people. As I got older, the racial differences became quite stark and pronounced, and I kind of dealt with racism throughout school. I'd say from the age of maybe 4 or 5 to the age of 12, when I did actually end up moving to Nigeria. I was bullied, and I thought that my differences, or that the reason that people didn't like me or want to be friends with me, didn't want to come to my house and like do games or whatever, is because I was black. So I made the decision when I was young. I said, okay, I would like to know what it would be like if the people around me are black and I don't feel that racial segregation anymore. So I asked my mom, please, can I move to Nigeria? And at the time, she had the financial resources to do so. So I went to a boarding school in Nigeria. There, I was so excited. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm not the only black girl anymore. And still got kind of bullied. Yeah. it wasn't, I guess, as severe, or it didn't feel as bad. I still enjoyed school completely, and I did end up making friends and stuff like that, but I still felt different going through school. I felt like I couldn't relate to the other children around me. I felt that everything just was, or my reactions to things, or the way I felt about not fitting in was like over exaggerated. I really couldn't like handle it, and that was something that followed me when I moved to England. And the bullying never stops. It's just for a different reason. It's now, oh, she's the girl that has an accent, or she's the fat girl, or she's this and that. I wanted to have something that was my own. I wanted to have something that I could be known for. I wanted to feel like I belonged to something. So that was where I started kind of pinpointing and picking things that I could adopt as my identity, because I wanted to be known for something. I wanted to feel like I was noticed and paid attention to, like the other girls my age. So although I did love music and I wanted to be known kind of for music and stuff like that, I ended up just becoming really smart. I was always academically gifted. I guess you could say I was academically gifted. I don't know even what that means, to be quite honest with you, but that's the terms they use for it. And I did really well in school. So I made that kind of my personality trait. I made that my personality, really. And throughout secondary school, it was okay, but I still always noticed I was different. I noticed that I almost had to kind of bribe or beg a lot of people to even like me. And that's, looking back on it, it's so embarrassing, because they all kind of liked each other, and I just kind of felt like the odd man out all the time, always like on the outside looking in. And I used to cry to my mom, like, why don't I fit in? Why do I not resonate with anybody? Why do I, you know, not stand out or have any meaning to the people around me? And in school, I was doing well academically all through secondary school, but something that the teachers would always say is, oh, she talks a lot in class, or oh, she's not living up to her full potential, or oh, she doesn't try hard enough, or there was always something. I never just got a nice normal parents evening. There was always just some little comments they said, but because I was still doing above average academically, it kind of got brushed to the side ever since I was younger. My mental health in secondary school was never really good. I always felt depressed because I was different from everybody, and this really came to a head in year 11. The differences started to really accumulate, and I ended up pretty severely depressed. That was where my issues with not coming into school, my issues with self-harm started, and you know, it was something. It was something. I don't know what it was, but it was something. And dealing with that was really difficult at the time, and I felt like I had nobody to turn to. My mom didn't really get it, and it wasn't more so that she didn't believe me. It's just kind of she couldn't fathom what the problem was, and neither could I. I could barely tell them. Like, even when I started CBT, I could barely even say what the problem was. It was just this perpetual feeling of, I am different from everybody. My brain doesn't work the way that everybody's brain works. Every situation just feels hyper exaggerated and hypersensitive to me. So yeah, that was really kind of my experience in childhood. And this kind of happened in year 11, and then going into year 12, and then I started to have these academic difficulties. And when I had those academic difficulties, as you know in my video, put it there, I had to resit the year, yada yada yada, come out on the other side, get into medical school, bam. sorry, it's just like really hard to talk about because when you really look back on it, I just feel like number one, kids are mean, like including me. I was never, I'm not gonna come here and say that I didn't perpetuate behaviors or anything towards other people, but kids can be really mean, and the trauma that I experienced in secondary school, no one can take that experience away from me. No one can tell me, oh, it wasn't that deep. And that's all I ever hear.
Oh, Victoria, you're dramatic. Oh, Victoria, it's not that deep, man. Oh, Victoria, relax, it's not even that serious.
It was serious. It was serious. And I later found out kind of why I was feeling like that. Another thing that I feel like is important to mention is issues with like neurodiversity or neurodevelopmental issues. It's something that's really rampant in my family. I have my younger brother has autism. I have other family members, like multiple family members with autism and also ADHD. So, I mean, I find it kind of weird that, you know, nobody thought something was wrong. But again, because in women it presents differently, and because my academics weren't too much of an issue, nobody really said anything about it. So we move on to kind of just the symptoms that I would say that I had, just to kind of pinpoint them. Sorry, I'm just gonna actually like look them up and like put them on the screen and stuff. My symptoms when I was younger, symptoms included like having a very short attention span. I had, my teachers would always say, oh, Victoria, you're not paying attention. What did I just say? And I could always repeat back what they said, but I kind of struggled to really engage with content at the speed that it was going in school. I did make a lot of careless mistakes in my work, and those usually would be the things that would kind of bump my grades slightly down, because I was making those careless mistakes when I did know the content. Appearing forgetful or losing things. Now that my problem with being forgetful is that I have the memory, it feels like I have the memory of a goldfish. And look, I'm a goldfish. I clearly am a goldfish, because why can't I remember something that you literally just said? Or why can't I remember something I learned 5 minutes ago or even a day ago? And I lose a lot of things. I've lost suitcases on trains. I even just lost my Apple Watch. I lose things quite often and quite frequently, and that becomes an issue because it becomes expensive. It becomes expensive, it becomes time consuming to look for things, and you just feel irritated because you're losing things sometimes that don't even belong to you. So then you have to deal with people being upset, and you deal with people being upset that you've forgotten things you've told them in confidence, and it makes it seem like you're not listening or you're not trying. Being unable to stick to tasks that are tedious or time consuming, that's that. I don't even have to elaborate on that. I feel like in general it can be quite difficult for all people, neurodiverse or not, to stick to time consuming and irritating tasks, finding the motivation to study. But mine feels like it gets to the point where it's almost crippling, because I just can't sit there and do that work. And before I could, or before it took minimal effort, but as time went on, it became very more pronounced and stark that I couldn't spend the amount of time that my peers are spending on their work. And that becomes difficult as a med student, because it's a very academic, highly academic subject. You need to put in the hours, and you need to appear like you can put in the hours too, because you might study slightly less than somebody else, but there's almost like this kind of competitive nature of the degree that makes you feel like if you say, oh, I only studied 4 hours today, that might be the most that you've studied the entire week. But you can't tell people that you're only studying 4 hours a day because everyone else is saying that they're studying 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Another issue that I feel like I really struggled with, as I said slightly earlier in the video, communicating with others. There's two terms that I would say that are really I guess they really describe what I was going through. And the first term would be, let me actually search it properly so that I can come up with the right term right now. The first term is rejection sensitive dysphoria. And rejection sensitive dysphoria, it makes people who have the condition sometimes work really hard to make everyone like and admire them, or they might stop trying and stay out of any situation where they can get hurt. This social withdrawal can look like social phobia, which is a serious fear of getting embarrassed in public. RSD can affect relationships with family, friends, or a romantic partner. The belief that you're being rejected can turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you act differently towards the person you think has rejected you, they may begin to do so for real. Now, no one can tell me, because I know it, no one can tell me that that hasn't been the character defining thing of a lot of my friendships and even my relationships. And I'm getting to the point where it feels like this thing is ruining my life because I can't hold the friendships that mean the most to me. I can't be in a meaningful relationship. I can't do anything. I literally can't do anything. I can't be around people in a meaningful way because I feel like I have to push them away, or I feel like they're rejecting me, and it hurts. It really hurts. It's very isolating. And that's why it feels like, I guess that's why it feels like I needed to do something about it. I needed there to be, I guess, a change, because RSD also comes with a low self-esteem. I always felt insecure. I always felt like I had nothing to offer the world. I always felt like nobody cared about me. I always felt anxious in social situations, like I kind of would have to mask and mirror the behavior of other people around me. I was having emotional outbursts, and these emotional outbursts started when I was very young, and they've continued to appear in my life up until literally last week. Cries, almost outcries for help, just feeling overwhelmed by the things that are going on in my life. And ultimately I started to feel like a failure because nothing was working out for me, and naturally you're gonna feel like that. So I started to think that I had ADHD because I kind of saw things that I read that resonated with me on TikTok and on social media, and that's kind of what made me go ahead and start to explore and do more research into my symptoms. I thought that I just had depression, but even through therapy and CBT, none of those things really stuck, because I didn't feel just sad for the sake of being sad. I felt sad because I felt so different from everybody and I couldn't understand why. And I felt like if I could understand myself, then I'd be able to get over how I'm feeling. So what I did was go to my GP. That's what I tell you to do, go to your GP. I went to my GP in December of last year, so December of 2021, and I kind of just told them, I said, I'm not feeling well. I've been having these depressive episodes. I'm not leaving the house. I'm not doing anything. The Adhd is Adhding, and I need help. So and I had the previous stint in CBT and CAMS. I had all the history, so he had enough information. The history was enough to say, oh yeah, you have depression. And when I mentioned ADHD to him, he's like, yeah, but you also probably might just have depression. So he prescribed me on antidepressants, referred me for some CBT, and he did put me on, because I persisted, he did put me on the Psychiatry UK waitlist and stuff, and then obviously you have to do the forms, etc. I also wanted to apply for extra time in my exams, so I got a letter, which I had to pay for, £50. But yeah, I gave a letter to my uni and I started to get extra time. Well, I got extra time, I applied for extra time, whatever. Fast forward now, it's taking a bit long for the CBT to come through, and I'm really not here for what's happened, because at this point I'm certain that I have ADHD. Like, there's no one can actually tell me different. But I guess in the back of my head I almost hoped that that wasn't wrong with me, so I needed to know. So what I did was go through disability at my university. So just emailed the disability team, and then I did the initial assessment on paper. They just give you a form to fill out, and after you fill out the form, they get back to you, they send you a list of assessors, and you book an appointment with an assessor to kind of just figure out what learning difficulties you have right now. Because you're meeting with a psychologist as opposed to an actual psychiatrist or a neurologist, they can't give you a medical diagnosis of ADHD. They can only give it to you as a specific learning difficulty. So my assessment was on the 19th of April. It takes a bit long for the assessments, because you know the wait list for them is a lot, because a lot of people are feeling like this. Actually, I heard a statistic that ADHD actually affects 1 in 10 people, but anyways, I did my assessment on the 19th, and it was basically 2 hours, and they just asked a bunch of like comprehension questions, writing and reading, and kind of a part of the sections was like almost like the UCAT abstract reasoning, and they just had me do these things over time. But first I kind of spoke to her about my issues and my concerns. So once I got to the assessment, that goldfish memory really came in clutch. Like, they would ask me to repeat numbers back to them, and it was a struggle. Just a couple of numbers in a sentence, and that was a struggle. And I did that over and over again. I went through the assessment, and then by the assessment, I swear she looked in my eyes, like she looked at me. You got ADHD. Oh dear. After that, honestly, I wish I could say that I felt vindicated. I mean, I did feel vindicated, because as of late, I've had a lot of kind of issues in like my personal life and the people around me, and I wish that it feels like I wish they could understand where I'm coming from, or why that I behave the way I behave, because even I, for the longest time, didn't know why I was behaving that way. But getting this diagnosis, it almost makes me feel sad and upset that I couldn't just it makes me feel sad that I couldn't just like navigate things. After the assessment, I will receive a personalized care plan for my uni and stuff. I'm eligible for more extra time than I already have, and my assessor kind of gave me like some advice, some warm information. She said that she feels like I'm a bright girl, and that when things are put in place for me, that it'll be better. And she kind of just talked to me about the people that I have around me, and how important it is to have people that are kind and do care about you, and do like are understanding of the things you're going through, because nobody really knew what was going on with me. Nobody knew that I had ADHD. My mom said she suspected, but anyways, but nobody really knew. And because nobody knew, nobody could act accordingly. Nobody could kind of give me that leeway or give me that grace. And it feels like I was always the one giving grace, or I was always allowing things that I didn't want to allow because I was grateful to have anybody in my life at all. Looking back on it, looking back on all the times I was really impulsive, doing up Snapchat warrior, or the times that I would just get up and go when really I needed to rest, just to avoid being by myself and really thinking about why I behaved the way that I behaved. It was a lot. And she, you know, she kind of just said, you need to really be wary of who you surround yourself with. And I understand that. If you know me, I'm a really bubbly person. I like to make friends, I like to go out, but I'm at the point now, right now, like today, where I almost don't know where the ADHD stops and where I start. And that was kind of why the diagnosis got me down, because I don't know how much of my personality is personality quirks, or I don't know how much of it is my ADHD, and I don't know how much of it is emotional issues that come from my childhood and things that I've gone through in my past. I almost don't know how to distinguish or sift through the information and find out who I am, and it's a hard place to be in. It's not cute, I'm not gonna lie. It's a bit emotional, but we have to move forward. So I guess just to kind of sum up what my next steps are, what my next steps in terms of my ADHD diagnosis are, first of all, finish the Psychiatry UK forms, and then I would be able to refer myself to a psychiatrist to get a medical diagnosis after I've done that. But the wait list is pretty long, so the wait list is like a year. But then I started it about, I want to say that was December, so around January of next year I could be looking to get a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis. And then after that, then you have to kind of go through whatever motions the NHS takes you through. The alternative is to go privately, but the reason that privately is kind of not an option right now is because that's £1,000. If you have £1,000 and this video resonates with you, go privately. If you can afford the £90 plus prescriptions every month, by all means, do that. I'm worried for that in the future because I'm afraid that they won't put me on medication. And I didn't want to take the antidepressants that my doctor gave me because I didn't feel like they would solve anything. But I do feel, based on the research and what I've heard about taking the ADHD medication, that is an option for me in the future. I just want to be able to have that option because I do feel like I need that mental clarity. I do feel like it will really make a difference in my mood, in my productivity, and it might also help me understand who I am separate from this, I guess, learning difficulty or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so again, if you are feeling, if anyone that's watched this resonates with it, or is feeling like they have ADHD, or is feeling like they have any other learning difficulty, it's very important, especially if you're sitting here watching this and you're a Black woman, because I've barely even touched on that. I'm going to do a separate video about this with my flatmate, speaking about learning difficulties in Black women and how those things really impact you. But if you're sitting here, anybody, but especially if you're a Black woman and you resonate, email who you need to email, go to your doctor, push your agenda, because if not, you may never know, and knowing is the first step to changing something and getting better. Yeah, I'm proud of myself. I got through this video without crying. And I think that's all. So it's exam season, and you guys already know that my consistency is a bit shoddy, but I'm gonna keep trying not to use it as an excuse, but just saying, your girl got some stuff going on or whatever. But thank you for watching. If you got to the end of this video, I love you guys, and I love everybody. I love everybody that watches my channel. I really do appreciate you guys, and I'm just praying that, I guess, things get better in the near distant future. But that's all from me. I hope that like the beat that I did for you guys is a service giving bohemian. Oh my gosh, I just realized I forgot to put on my nose ring. It's all right then. But yeah, that's all from me today. Bye y'all.